Central Floridians talk life and politics ahead of November elections. You're listening to The Wrap from Central Florida Public Media. I'm Brendan Byrne. The countdown to the November elections is on. With just about 10 weeks to go, we here at Central Florida Public Media convened a small group of voters to talk about how they are feeling this election season. Tom Unrath is one of those people. The Melbourne resident says he has a number of issues he's paying attention to.
How we care for each other. What is our healthcare system going to look like? What should it look like? And what are you going to do about the environment?
Get to know this group of Central Floridians who we'll continue to hear from in the coming weeks on everything from the economy to abortion to concerns about civility. That's ahead on The Wrap, the big stories this week from Central Florida Public Media. But first, these headlines. Governor Ron DeSantis said controversial plans to add golf courses, pickleball courts, and other amenities to state parks are being scrapped for now.
Nothing has been approved, and they are going to go back and listen to folks. And as I said, as governor, I am totally fine to just do nothing and do no improvements if that's what the general public wants, and that's fine with me.
At a press conference in Winter Haven, reporters asked the governor about the plans, which he claimed he had neither seen nor approved. The so-called Great Outdoors Initiative drew widespread criticism from members of the public, Florida lawmakers, and advocacy groups like the Nature Conservancy, and prompted protests across the state. The 9 simultaneous public meetings the Florida Department of Environmental Protection had originally scheduled for Tuesday, August 27th still appear on the state agency's calendar as rescheduled. No alternative meeting times have been set. Osceola County School Board members voted against approving chaplains in schools after hearing hours of public comment for and against the program. Only one school board member, John Arguello, voted in favor of the program that would have allowed chaplains to act as school counselors with parental permission. He was disappointed with the outcome and says the Satanic Temple's concern with the program, which delayed the vote, ultimately swayed it.
The school board of Osceola County allied itself with the Satanic Temple in killing the program. And it's crazy that the majority of the school board here in Osceola County allied itself with the Satanic Temple.
As outlined in the law that legalized the program on July 1st, each school board and district must decide whether to adopt a version of the chaplain program, and if they do, how it will be implemented. The Federal Aviation Administration is grounding SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket after a booster exploded during landing off the coast of Florida this week. It was the 23rd flight of SpaceX's reusable booster, and it was its last, exploding during a landing attempt on a barge at sea. While the explosion resulted in no injuries or damages to public property, the FAA is requiring an investigation. A return to flight will be determined after the review. This also means the Falcon 9 rocket, set to launch an all-civilian crew on a 5-day mission, performing the first commercial spacewalk, could be further delayed. That mission has already been delayed twice for different reasons. More local news stories on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. Florida's primary is over for the most part, and now candidates and voters are turning to the general election in November. This year, journalists here at Central Florida Public Media and at other public media partners across the state have put together a voting guide to help you decide who gets your vote. Want to know who's funding a candidate? Have questions about a candidate's stance on issues important to you? We've asked. See their answers on our voter guide at cfpublic.org. We are less than 2 months out from the November elections, where voters will not only elect a new president of the United States, but members of Congress, state legislatures, and critical local positions too. This year, to help guide our coverage, Central Florida Public Media has been doing a lot of listening. Our news director and managing editor, LaToya Dennis, spoke with my colleague, Talia Blake, about this newsroom's efforts to listen.
Hey, LaToya. So it started with a survey you launched back in March asking Central Floridians what issues were driving them to vote or could possibly even be standing in the way of them casting their ballots this year.
Yes. And, with that survey, we heard from lots of you about everything from concerns over the environment to the cost of housing. You all have had questions about how to go about figuring out who to actually vote for. We've also heard from you all about how do I even go about registering to vote in the state of Florida? Now, beyond the survey, this year, Central Florida Public Media is participating in StoryCorps' One Small Step initiative, which brings together two people with differing views to have conversations about life.
And a quick side note, those conversations will start airing right here on the station soon, so look out for that.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. But we also decided to put together a small group listening session, actually multiple of them, across our coverage area. We heard from people from Kissimmee to the Villages.
And why was that? What were you looking to learn?
Honestly, nothing beats face-to-face communication when you're really trying to understand what's driving people. I mean, forget the races, forget the politics. What is driving people? We didn't record those listening sessions, but as we were conducting them, I couldn't help but think how important it was for other people to be able to hear what we were hearing. So we decided to pull together another small group of people from One Small Step and some from the listening sessions we'd done for a conversation that we would actually air. That conversation started, as most do, with introductions.
My name is Tom Unrath. I live in Melbourne, which is just over on the beach side, not too far from Kennedy Space Center. I have lived there since 2002. I was in the Air Force for 22 years. I was a chaplain. And since then, I have served several congregations in Brevard County.
Unrath is 69 years old and has been a registered Republican his entire life, but says he feels like he's been left behind by the Republican Party of today. When it comes to voting, he says there are several issues on his mind.
How we care for each other. What is our healthcare system going to look like? What should it look like? And what are you going to do about the environment?
Unrath says living in Melbourne, the Indian River Lagoon is important to him and seems to be a talking point for just about every Republican candidate. But he has some concerns about whether it's a real priority for them. Doug Bowman, a 68-year-old resident of East Orlando, is up next.
Like Tom, I'm ex-military, except I was in a better service called the Army. I've had an eclectic career, having grown up in the military as what we called an Army brat, but and lived all over the world. But I say my career spanned between the Army, academia, working for nonprofits, and working for profits.
Like Unrath, Bowman is a member of the Republican Party, but feels as though it doesn't represent his beliefs well right now. He says the party is no longer about issues. It's about staying in power.
In my opinion, if you look today at the Republican Party, they're driven by big corporations. They're driven by wealthy donors who have an agenda that may not necessarily represent the opinions of the majority of the country.
Bowman says that instead of focusing on the issues, what he hears is a lot of name-calling and endorsements. No talk about policy.
Those don't communicate what I believe is important to me as a voter, which is, what are you going to do once you get elected?
Bowman is a member of the League of Women Voters and says he's looking for candidates that understand that compromise is necessary in order to lead. 64-year-old David Walker of Harmony, Florida, says that up until he moved here about 7 years ago, he was a registered Democrat.
It was almost like you voted because that's what the family did. You just kind of went along with everybody else, and that's what the community did. That's the way they voted.
Walker says that when he moved to Florida, he decided to register as an independent. I asked why.
We are at a time where we are so polarized.
Yes.
How can you truly be independent?
Well, it's easy. There's a check mark on the paper, and I just check it. That's the easy part. But I acknowledge what you're saying, because earlier I said, but I still lean left, right?
You did.
Because that is truism.
Walker says that for him, it's about letting the Democratic Party know that he would no longer be a just because voter. He says there are two things he votes on: policies and character.
Political fights, I understand. We're going to argue back and forth. But there is a way to engage respectfully when you're talking to people. You don't downgrade, you don't denigrate, you don't name call, those kinds of things. So, yes, I went that way because I wanted to be in the middle, and I'll make my choice.
Our final participant is Tiffany Jeffers. She's 42 years old and lives in Kissimmee with her husband and 3 children. She also runs a nonprofit called the Black Empowerment and Community Council.
I am a registered Democrat. I've been an independent for most of my life, and this is the first year that I actually hung my hat on some party. I have 2 girls. This is their first year to vote, and so it's important for me to really dig through a lot of the noise and figure out what are the actual issues that matter to our community.
Jeffers says toward the top of that list are education and the cost of living.
So, LaToya, this was just an introduction, kind of like a get to know the panel, right?
Yeah, and over the next few weeks, we'll be bringing you bits and pieces of our conversation, which you participated in, Talia.
Oh, yeah. I remember being there.
You
yes,
were there.
I was there.
That's right. Now, the goal is to really break down some of those barriers and even assumptions we make about each other when it comes to political parties.
So I have to ask, was there anything you found surprising about this conversation?
Absolutely. I have to say it was a great reminder that people are not just one thing. No matter the titles that we and others may put upon us, we are full of nuance. And when you come to a conversation like this with open minds, you might just find out you land much closer on issues with people you seemingly have nothing in common with, right? That's definitely what happened with this group of people that we brought together.
That was Central Florida Public Media's LaToya Dennis speaking with colleague Talia Blake about our voter panel. You'll hear more from that group in the coming weeks. That's it for The Wrap this week. This podcast is produced by Central Florida Public Media with assistance from News Director LaToya Dennis and Digital Director Ryan Ellison. I'm Brendan Byrne. This is The Wrap.